Welcome to Prince Shorthand House. Exercise number 103-104. Sir Happy sings 140 words a minute. Ready? Start. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I stand here with a heavy heart because when this bill was being moved at that time, I repeatedly sought to intervention of the Honorable Speaker, stating that this bill was a new bill and it should be referred to the Standing Committee for consideration. I am of the opinion because on an earlier occasion also the Honorable Finance Minister mentioned that the Standing Committee had deliberated for more than 2 years on this GST bill and it did not need to go to the Standing Committee. This is a very different type of bill. It is a constitution amendment bill, no doubt, but it is a different type of bill. It concerns respective state government revenues, and it also concerns the central government revenue. It deals with tax, and the basic structures of GST is that it will be single point tax. That is why a lot of deliberations have taken place after the idea was mooted, first in 2000 and subsequently in 2003 after the committee submitted its report. I am not going into all those details. There is another occasion when an amendment bill was referred to the Standing Committee for consideration, and that is the Company Law Amendment Bill. The Company Law Amendment Bill was referred to the Standing Committee of Finance for consideration. After deliberation, the committee submitted its report to the Parliament, and the government of the day took cognizance of a large number of suggestions and came out with a number of amendments. But subsequently, the government also came to know that other than the amendments suggested by the Standing Committee, some new provisions were required because they are discussed with other stakeholders, and some new provisions were also made in the Company Law Amendment Bill. When that bill was again brought before the House, some of us stood up and requested the then Speaker, and subsequently then Speaker also spoke to the Corporate Affairs Minister, Mr. Moily, who is also a member of this House today, and the government of the day took cognizance of the situation and referred the bill again to the Standing Committee of Finance for consideration of the bill. Because it was a bill that new provisions and a lot of amendments, it was referred again. So it is not that once a bill is referred to the Standing Committee, it should not be referred to the committee again. To prove that point, I gave you the instance of the Company Law Amendment Bill, which was referred to the committee a second time and the committee gave its report. Sir, I would ask that the GST bill is path-breaking bill. It is a game changer. It is a constitution amendment bill. Therefore, I would again request and impress upon the government to reconsider its stand. This is a new bill. There are a number of provisions in this bill which were not deliberated by the Standing Committee earlier. The empowered committee, of course, with the state finance ministers, has taken many issues into consideration. Parliament, of course, will consider while we will be discussing on this aspect when this bill is taken up for consideration and passing. But the Standing Committee is losing its relevance. In today's newspaper, a news item has come out as to what happened during the last 1 year. A number of bills, and the number is given around 51 bills and ordinances were moved by the government. Many of them have not been referred to the Standing Committee. Hardly 8 bills have been referred to the Standing Committee. I would not ask the question whether this government is thinking to make the Standing Committee redundant, but the manner in which we are moving gives a wrong signal, as if the Standing Committee is not required. It will lose its relevance. My impression may be wrong, but many a time we have seen, at least on 2 occasions, whether it may be coal or it may be mines and minerals, that select committee have been formed in the other house, and within a small time frame a mandate was given. You submit a report and we will consider. That is how the select committee are being formed. Before the Standing Committee came into existence, perhaps select committee was the practice. That was before 1993-94, but here is an issue where the members of parliament through standing committee can deliberate. If you have not referred it during the month of December or January, still I would say there is the time. Give a specific time period to the standing committee. We have monsoon session coming up in the month of July. So in the first week of July, that time frame can be given by the direction of the speaker. Here is a bill before us which we will be deliberating, but it will be better if you refer it to the standing committee. The standing committee's views are not mandatory on the government, they are suggestive in nature. Next para. Sir, I am neither supporting any media nor questioning any government which is democratically elected. It is about the importance of freedom of speech and expression in our democracy. Press has been placed at a very high pedestal by calling it the fourth estate, the other three being the legislature, the executive and the judiciary. The forefathers of our constitution placed immense faith that the media can play a very impartial, constructive and selfless role in matters relating to public interest. This belief is reflected more than adequately in several concessions granted to media, including the provisions in terms of Article 19 of the Constitution of India, considering the media to be a holy cow in the course of nation building. About the freedom of speech and expression, the rights granted under Article 19 subarticle 1 are not unlimited, as Article 19 subarticle 2 of the Indian Constitution enables the legislature to impose certain restrictions on free speech under the following heads: security of the state, friendly relations with the foreign states, public order, decency and morality, contempt of court, defamation, incitement to an offense, and sovereignty and integrity of India. Therefore, any restrictions on freedom of speech and expression can be enforced only by the legislature within the framework of Article 19 subarticle 2 and not by any other means. Sir, recently certain restrictions were attempted to be imposed. We have a history that during the emergency period several restrictions were imposed on freedom of press. Subsequently, attempts are being made on a regular basis to indirectly control media as media started its aggression in exposing corrupt practices by the government and some big industrial houses. Recently, restrictions are put across the country. There are some media houses with crony capitalism and ill-gotten money. Some corporate houses are also controlling media. As all of us are aware, and new state of Telangana was formed with a lot of resistance or whatever it is. But finally, in an unscientific manner, the state was divided. In the background, in the recently concluded assembly session of Telangana in June 2014, the Honorable Chief Minister moved a resolution in the State Assembly and the State Council authorizing the Speaker and the Chairman respectively to decide the punishment to be given to the two private channels on the pretext that these channels hurt the sentiments of the people of Telangana by airing certain programs. At the same time, our party opposed such a resolution on the floor of both the houses in the state, as it amounts to suppression of the freedom of the press, but the ruling party went ahead without any respect for the freedom of expression guaranteed in our constitution. Subsequent to this resolution in the State Assembly and in the State Council, the blockade of both the channels was declared with effect from July 2014. Almost 100 days are over, though the government denies its role in it. Strangely, the government tries to stay away from the gagging effort, stating that a group of people known as multiple system operators who control distribution of channels in Telangana decided to block these channels as they heard the sentiments of the Telangana people. Sir, here is a very important point. Can a group of private individuals like multiple system operators scuttle the rights guaranteed by the constitution? It is most important to recall here that the Honorable Supreme Court in a case against the state of Kerala and in a number of other cases held that reasonable restrictions on the freedom of speech in terms of Article 19 sub-Article 2 can be imposed only by a duly enacted law and not by the executive action. It is also necessary that there must be a reasonable nexus between the restriction imposed and the achievement of public order. If this being the rule of the land, how can the government of Telangana play a role of a silent spectator in the present blockade of TV channels in the absence of any enacted law? What should be the role of an elected government? In our democracy, the first and foremost obligation of any elected government is to uphold the constitution and initiate measures to enforce the rights granted by it to the citizens of the country well within the four walls of the constitution. The only logical conclusion can draw in the entire episode from the silence maintained by the present government in Telangana state is that either it has no faith in our constitution or only sponsoring its agenda of scuttling the freedom of the press through its trusted and favorite private individuals for the reasons best known to it. Can we allow running any of our states which are members of the Republic of Union as princely states? After independence, nearly 550 princely states were unified into Indian Union after a great effort by our forefathers to carve out a federal India. Are we not going backwards by disrespecting the rules prescribed by our constitution? Stop.